At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you today's guest speaker, Mr. Anson Smith, the Army National Guard Deputy G1. Mr. Anson Smith, a senior civilian within the Department of Defense, is the Deputy G1 for the Army National Guard. He provides the day-to-day overall direction, management, planning, coordination, and administration of the Army National Guard's service-wide civilian human resource programs. Mr. Smith also oversees matters involving management of civilian personnel, workforce management, planning, compensation, and diversity issues. Mr. Smith served in the U.S. Army for 25 years, retiring in 2013. He began his federal career as the Career Program Manager for the Army Financial Management Community in 2014. Prior to his current position, he was the Deputy Division Chief for the Strength Maintenance Division of the Army National Guard. Leveraging his over 22 years of experience in recruiting and retention operations, and was responsible for planning and executing policies, programs, and procedures to provide service support to commanders and other components at all 54 states and territories, to include areas of logistics, resources, communications, and mission support management. Mr. Smith provided oversight of marketing, contracting, and resources valued over $200 million annually. As the Senior Management Program Analyst at Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, for the Victim Assistance Program Unit, he directed the financial operations programs with budgets of between $500,000 to $1 million, including 36 forensic interviewers and 9 support staff. As the Deputy Chief of Proponency for the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Financial Management and Comptroller, he was responsible for building, executing. Please welcome Mr. Anson Smith.
Yeah. Thank you. Had we gone any longer, you probably would have missed your flights later on today. So I appreciate that. As I'm sitting there listening to my bio, I'm thinking like, man, that's me. And I say that from a position of humbleness. But before I speak, I want to recognize the families that are here. Thank you for coming to support your loved ones after this 5-week endeavor that they've obviously attained the right to graduate here today and represent the Army National Guard in their communities. And so for me, this is kind of like bittersweet. And I also need to apologize to Major White. I think I broke the number 1 rule, and I made my flight prior to 1500, so I'm gonna have to leave right after. But to General Bennett, my boss, who's in the back, Colonel Cherry, CSM Snow, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today to this graduating class. It reminds me of a time when I was here, when I first was here over 20 years ago, when I started my Title 10 tour. And as I look around the room, some of the same faces still work here at PEC that was here in 2003 when I came on board to become an instructor writer, like these gentlemen here on the stage. And that was kind of the beginning of my story, or almost the beginning of my purpose. But when I reflect back on my over 25 years of service, there was a day in 1987 where I didn't even know that this day would ever come. And so when I look back as I'm listening to the accomplishments that I achieved, I'm often reminded that those things may not have taken place had it not been for a recruiter who is just like you are sitting in this room today. You see, during a time in 1985 when I was in high school, I really didn't take high school seriously. And so as I went on to college, I really didn't take college seriously either. And so at some point I had to determine what did I want to take serious in life. And so for me, that decision was to join the Army. And so I walked into a recruiting station, and if any of you are familiar with the Future Soldier Prep course, let's just say, based on my ASVAB, I would have qualified for that course today. And so my recruiter did not just say, hey, you're not qualified, take a hike. He actually invested time and energy into me, which helped me to develop and to become the person that you just heard read on that bio. And so my story to you today is not about numbers. It's not about production. It's not about the mission. It's really about you as an individual and things that you need to do in order to not only take care of yourself, but also to take care of others. Because before you can take care of others, you must first learn to take care of yourself. But before I get into that, I want to tell you a story. And a story that all of you are probably familiar with in some form or another. So in 2020, obviously, when COVID-19 kind of ravaged our country and essentially shut us down, recruiting from that particular point in time entered into what I would define as a storm. And we continued into that storm until late 2022. But I'm here today to tell you that as we are in 2023, we are making a miraculous comeback. As of today, as of this morning, we are only 351 enlistments away from making our accession mission for the last 3 consecutive months, something we have not done since 2019. So you are coming into a period of time where the tide is really turning. You're coming into a time where the challenges that those before you had faced, they figured out a way to make it happen. They stayed the course. So they set the battlefield, or they set the expectations that will now allow you to leave this schoolhouse with your 5 weeks of training to actually step into a situation where you can truly be successful. But everyone is not going to experience that success right away. And so as I thought about what I want to talk to you about today, like I stated earlier, I wrote a speech about 3 weeks ago. But when I came here, you didn't see me, but I saw you. I walked around. I saw what you were doing. I saw you out at night behind Patriot with your hack and sack doing your thing, right? That's okay. Because those are some things that we have to do when we're in a stressful environment. We have to find ways to relieve that stress so we can function and be able to function in a manner that will make us successful. And so the question I would ask is, how do you explain when things don't go as planned? Because I'm sure as long as you've been here, the number one thing they talked about was making a plan, setting goals. And we go through this process and we use this training to make those plans and set those goals. Or better, we ask, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all assumptions? Your plan may not work, but then you see others whose plan may be similar to yours or might not be as comprehensive as yours, and yet they're being successful. And so the great Mike Tyson, if you're familiar with him, the great Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And so typically, as a fighter, you have a plan. You want to execute that plan. But when you get punched in the mouth, you have to deviate from that plan. But you have to rely on the skills and the training that you accumulated over years and years to be able to now adjust and adapt to whatever that situation is. This 5-week course prepared you to be able to adjust to your plan. This 5-week course prepared you to be able to adapt to the changing environment that you're going to experience when your plan doesn't work. So for my time, I would like to talk about when you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot. And essentially what that means is when you're green, you're constantly learning. You don't leave here and forget the institutional knowledge that you receive. You don't leave here and go back and do things that are not in line with what you learn here, not in line with the principles and the tools that you were taught to be successful here. When you get home and you throw away all your knowledge, you throw away all your experiences that you created while you were here, you begin to rot because you're no longer developing yourself to get better at your craft. These gentlemen on stage, these ladies on stage, they're your conduit to questions that you may have related to what you learned when you get back to the field. I'm sure they would share their information with you to contact them to be able to answer questions about things or situations that you may find yourself in that you may not necessarily understand how to navigate. And so some think that being agile means not having a plan. But that's the same as saying that a salesperson pursuing an applicant is not persistent. Not so coincidentally, Agile is based on persistence and, most importantly, planning. As R&R NCOs, your plans will be challenged by your environment. Your plans will be challenged by the target market. It will be challenged by social media. But you cannot allow other people's limited perception define not only your organization, but define who you are and what you represent. Instead, you must pivot and remember that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for and protected. And you who are sitting in this room are an integral part of ensuring that the soldiers that you enlist in the Army National Guard are retained as well. Which means that you have a three-tenet mission. It's not only about recruiting, but it's also about retention and attrition management. The sign on the wall says readiness starts here. Readiness starts here at the Professional Education Center. So it's your charge to take that information that you've learned, to talk to those soldiers that you enlist in the Army National Guard, to build a relationship with those individuals that are in the RSP, to make those relationships and build those connections so they can bring you referrals, so you can make a difference in the community that you're in. I'll tell you a quick story. We were in Orlando, Florida, in the mall. An Army recruiter walked by. He said, "Hey, ma'am," talking to my boss, "this is Sergeant or Private Ortiz. He's never seen a general." So she stood up and she shook his hand, and she pointed to me and she told the recruiter he was a recruiter also. His response was, "Oh, I bet I was better than him." First of all, you don't know me. And so he walked over to me. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but he gave me his analogy about why he was better than me as a recruiter. And my response to his analogy, that's the difference between you and I. You recruit in places where people are unqualified to make them qualified. I recruit people to change lives and give them opportunity to better themselves, better their community, better their situation. That's what made me successful. It wasn't about a number. It was about that recruiter who changed my life. It was about me giving back to do the same thing. And so when we talk about what is your purpose is defined in your plan. In recruiting, just like the analogy from Mike Tyson, your punch in the mouth will come in the form of no. Your punch in the mouth will come from the no-show when you've worked the applicant all day, several days, weeks. You make an appointment and they no-show. You call them, they don't answer. When they do answer, they're not interested. That's your punch in the mouth. And so the truth is, you don't know what's going to happen. It's a crapshoot at best. We do our best to make a great impression on these young men and these young women to show them how our organization is the best for them to achieve what their goals are. In order to do that, you will learn through your experience. You must learn to listen instead of speaking when you're talking to applicants. Because the applicant will tell you exactly what they want. But if you're talking when they're talking, you will talk them out of the things that they're trying to tell you because you're not listening. But understand that in this business, you will work hard for what you want because it will not come without some perseverance. It will not come without some scar tissue. It will not come without long nights, long days, early mornings. But you must stay the course, stay strong. Know that you can achieve success if you follow the principles and utilize the tools that were taught the past 5 weeks. And just keep believing in yourself and turning a negative into a positive. As young R&R NCOs, success is all about growing yourself. And that growth in yourself today will prepare you for the positions you will hold tomorrow. Section Chief, NCOIC, Sergeant Major. It's that time your success will be about how do you grow others? How do you help develop others to be the leaders that you have become? That's your purpose. I made mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. But I believed in myself, and I found ways to express myself and the discipline to keep going. This life is made up of mistakes and learning, waiting, and growing. But you must remain patient and persistent, and you will find success. If you're afraid to fail, then you're probably going to fail. The great Kobe Bryant. Everything negative, to include pressure and challenges, it's all an opportunity for you to rise above that and be the NCO and RNCOs that your states, your territories know that you can become. Character and discipline, it's a two-way door. That was my blueprint. Without character, without discipline, I would not be able to achieve the things that were read off in my bio. In 2008, as an instructor here at SMTC at the time, I was riding my motorcycle on Interstate 40. Many of you have probably traveled that road. It was one Saturday morning. As I was entering onto 40 off 167, a motorist, she didn't see me. So she hit me. And that day, my life literally flashed in real time. But the only thing that it deterred me from was riding motorcycles. Because at that point, I had a mission. I knew I only had one life, and I had to make the most of it. And so that was a day that changed my purpose for me. So the thing that I want to share with you today that I believe is the most important, as many of you are aware, or you may not be, but now you do, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health in this country, since COVID-19, the isolation, those are things that have really impacted our community, impacted the young people, impacted you, impacted me in a very negative way. And so we have to find a way not only to care for ourselves, because in order to care for others, in order to give those individuals in your communities what they need, you must first feel or fuel the needs of your own. Being an RNCO can be a very stressful proposition. It's okay. It's okay to take time for yourself. You give so much of yourself to others, and from time to time, you need to refuel both mentally and physically to not only stay in balance, but it would also help you when you're interacting with the public, when you're interacting at home with your family, when you're interacting with kids in the community, when you're interacting with COIs and VIPs. That's the purpose of self-care. Self-care includes all things you do to take care of your well-being in 4 key areas: emotional, physical, psychological, and spiritual health. By emotional, I mean you should surround yourself with positive people. You should always learn or continue to learn about things that make you better. From a physical standpoint, you'll spend a lot of long days driving the MEPS, a lot of long nights at the Met sites. So you got to make sure that you eat right. You got to make sure you drink plenty of water. You got to make sure that you exercise, because that physical stamina is going to be required in order to be successful in this business. The psychological aspect of it. Continue to do activities that are for your own personal and professional development. That's going to be critical, because this job is going to have you thinking that you can't do it. So psychologically, you have to stay up to date on things that are going to keep you motivated. Motivation is one of those things that don't last long. So you have to find ways to motivate yourself. You have to find ways to make yourself get up and go. And then the last thing is your spiritual health. If you pray, pray. If you meditate, meditate. But identify within yourself what is the meaning of your work and what is the meaning of your life. And if you take that holistic approach to take care of yourself, then you will be able to go out and do this job successfully without any reservation. Because trust me, if you feel good, like Deion Sanders say, if you feel good, you look good, you play good, they pay good. So think about it from that terms. Think about it how you can improve yourself, and that will definitely lead into how you will operate as a R&R NCO. And so I just stopped by for a minute, thank you, to tell you that if you green, you grow. If you ripe, you rot. So don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop communicating. And I believe you have the potential, as all your instructors do, to be the best R&R NCOs to ever come through this course. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for those inspiring words.